Welcome to Agile Encounters. My name is Paweł Feliński, and today I'd like to cover the topic of dealing with dependencies. Last time, my guest Pete Shibley and I we were exploring the topic of a broad topic of dealing with overload in your team, in your organization, and one tiny thread of that conversation were dependencies. What kind of dependencies you have, how you can manage them. There were a lot of questions, a lot of comments. That we received from you, and I thought it would be helpful if we dig a little bit deeper into the topic. Now, important note: my purpose for that session is not to tell you in detail how to manage dependencies. I will not tell you everything that exists. Instead of that, these are Agile Encounters. It's been always like that. I'm going to share just a few practices or approaches that worked for me and my customers in my practice. Something that I can say is definitely the way of looking at the topic. The general flow of the presentation is I'm starting with basic definition of the dependencies. What are the dependencies? How can we look at them? Then a broad topic of mapping dependencies, and finally how to deal with them. At the very end of the webinar, I have a tiny surprise for you, so stay tuned, please. I will start with dependencies. So typically, if you attend a class, if you ask somebody what kind of dependencies do you manage, you will hear something, oh, we have a lot of technical ones, right? Technical dependency means my team cannot deliver something because earlier somebody else have to develop something else. There's a simple technical dependency. You might hear about functional dependencies. So technically it's feasible, for instance, if you are building an e-commerce online shop, technically, it's feasible to first build the payment and then the shopping cart, but it doesn't make sense, right? I would rather release an e-commerce with shopping cart without any payment. You can always do it manually if this is on MVP, if you're a startup and you really don't know if there are any customers for a business, but I wouldn't do it differently. So functional dependencies. You would hear about business dependencies, same but on the business level. You may hear about people or personal dependencies. So we would love to develop this feature, that set of functionalities in November, but key database architect is off till Christmas, and because of that we will not do it. Many other, because I think we could speak about a few more categories. And I decided not to go deeper into this topic because these kind of dependencies, types of dependencies, are absolutely correct, but in my personal experience, absolutely not helpful. The fact that this is a personal technical dependency doesn't bring anything to the conversation, right? So what's the consequence of that? Perhaps some of it is a picture from internet. Some of you heard about big room planning, one of the practices in the so-called scaled agile framework. The idea of mapping dependencies over here is pretty simple. In the swim lanes, you have either products or feature sets, maybe teams, depending on what your structures are. Each card is a feature, is a story, functionality. Each column is a sprint or some time period. It could be a sprint if you are using Scrum. It could be released. It could be month, whatever. And with this red string, you're mapping dependencies. As you can see, feature of team 1 in the first period of time depends on something that has to be delivered by team 2. Or actually is dependent on something that team 3 will deliver in 3 months from now. So this is a very nice map, and I'm not saying this practice is wrong. I did use it several times with my customers. It's time consuming, especially if you do it for the first time. It allows you to map a lot. You can use different color of the string to map different types of dependencies, and it triggers conversation because this is the majority of that practice is conversation. So I saw it in several places, especially big corporations, they're using it. I didn't see any progress of this organization in terms of dealing with dependencies. Okay, they were visualized, and today for the next period, let's say sprint or a release, we have a conversation with people involved in this big planning, what we can do about dependencies. Next time we will have same spaghetti on the board, and next time, same kind of picture, same kind of conversation. Is there a better way? Is there a better way? And that was also always a question I asked myself. Where perhaps let's take a look at it. My proposal is to offer a slightly different perspective. Whenever we talk about dependencies, whenever I think about dependencies, I don't think about feature, deliverable, something that I have to deliver or somebody has to deliver to me. I'm thinking about parties involved. Definitely there's my team or my organization, I put it here in the center, and I have customers, and customer is asking me to do something, call it a calling party. Calling team. Customer, whoever the customer is, internal, external, asks me to do something. So they depend on my delivery. It could be a different situation. My team depends on any other team. So I'm actually asking a team to deliver something to me because I need it to deliver value, deliver my my part, my output to my customer. This picture is, of course, very simple, but in reality, it's slightly more complicated. I have multiple customers, and perhaps I am dependent on multiple teams. And I wrote customer and I wrote team over here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be external customer or other team in my company. Typical situation would be I have two clients, but external ones, but also people from business, from my company, and maybe a team, a peer team that is developing something else. Sometimes they also ask me to deliver something to them. My team can depend on other teams, peer teams, completely different department, still my organization, or a vendor, external company with different agreement, SLA, and that also it creates some troubles to me. So this is the picture I typically see in even in small organizations. Step one, in my opinion, is to identify your customers. Why customers, you say? Let me come back to that picture. Dealing with dependencies have two sides. On the left-hand side, what we can see is, technically speaking, demand for your services. If you're a Kanban person, perhaps the service lens is something that is typical to you. But even if not, if you're solving a problem, if you as or your team delivers product, we can put service lens at it with no big problem. It provides value to your customers. So on the left-hand side, you have demand. These are customers, clients, our teams asking you to do something, coming with requests, feature requests, whatever kind of requests. And in my practice, the left-hand side part of this chart is easier to control. Although technically, very often these are external people to your team, it's easier to have a conversation with them. If my work depends, I'm talking about the right-hand side right now, on a vendor or other team, well, I can put pressure. I can ask, hey, could you please speed up? I'm waiting for it. But even if it takes a lot of time to build this kind of capability, maybe I don't need that vendor. It would be easier for me to have this vendor competences in my team. I can invest in building competence. I can hire more people. I can send my people to training, but it's nothing that will make a change in a moment. It takes months, right? With clients on the left-hand side, I can have the conversation faster. So first part of my talk today would be about the left-hand side part, how to deal with demand. As I said, I would start with identifying your customers. It's way easier to map your dependencies, to map demand as well, if you start with customers, not with kinds of requests that they have to. And then, only then, map the dependencies. Let me show you how to do that. So over here, there's an example of a map. Let's say I have three 4 customers identified. It's a business, so an organization of my company, a support team in my company, legal department also in my company, and perhaps a completely different team working on different application. So my team is not facing direct end customer, and that's okay. When I have customers identified, it's very easy to create such a map, looks like a mind map. Also visualizing what kind of requests arrive from them. So from business, they come with feature requests, for example, but also defect reports. Customer reported there's, or they find out there's a defect and I need to fix it. Support team, a completely different unit in my company, also comes with defect reports. Maybe legal department comes with change requests. Something changed legally in our country. We need to implement it in our system. A different team may have a question. They need to consult my team, especially if we are sharing same platform, software platform, and we need to operate together. And very often in my practice, I see that this is it. So that's the end of the mapping. I think there's there's an opportunity absolutely missed in here, because just the fact that you map, visualize who comes with what kind of requests to you doesn't bring a lot of transparency, maybe increases the transparency. Maybe you will see, oh, I didn't know that actually legal department is one of customers. And by customer, I mean anybody coming with a request to your team, not external customer, obviously. So I think very important, very valid step that should follow this kind of mapping is identification of the of demand. Let's take a look at it. For instance, I can write down that the nature of feature requests from business is typically 5 per month. In case of defect reports, way less, 1 or maybe twice a month, but these are high severity defects reported. Support team, well, it's random nature of demand. However, severity is low. That gives me an idea how to treat them. Change requests from legal team, they are rare, but very important. And actually, the requests for consulting from my fellow team, these are massive. And by massive, I may say, for instance, 40% of all requests coming to my team are actually not from business or support, but from a different team, different up team. And perhaps when I visualize this, that may trigger interesting conversation within my company. Fair enough. This is a real map that few months ago was done by us for one of our customers. A department of 10, maybe 12 teams altogether, less than 130 people, and that's a map created just for one team. Technically, each of these teams, single discipline teams, they have 2, 3, maybe 4 external customers. But as you can see, there are many more visualized. Massive demand were actually caused by other teams within the same department or other parts of the organization. Visualizing dependencies or visualizing your demand in such a way that immediately triggered a lot of conversation whether we should support that team. Shouldn't they do this kind of work on their own? Why they're asking us for support? They should be competent in doing it. Maybe there's a procedure to be changed. Where are the priorities? When you have such a map, it's way easier to facilitate this conversation. So, what to do? Whenever I map dependencies on this left-hand side of my chart, I start with identifying customers. Then I'm mapping these dependencies, but I'm analyzing the demand and put it on the map. That's very important, and I think it always worked. I don't do it on my own as an external consultant. I always engage the managers of my customer in doing it. In that case, it emerges on their own. I did several times did interview my customer and prepare a map on my own. But my experience is the impact of the message. The message itself is way more powerful if we do it together. Now, last time during the previous webinar, I told you that you can actually call us. We have started a new initiative, Ask Meirik. If you have a question, any kind of question, lean, agile, management consulting question, go to this website, askmeirik.grsite.com, and just ask the question and we'll answer. It would be most likely 1, maybe 2 minutes long video. A few questions already arrived. We are preparing the material. If you have a question, for instance, about this, and you want to know more, how to start it, how to make this kind of mapping, in your case, go for it, ask your question, and we will tell you more. So we have our demand visualized. What to do next? Very important quote. I'm convinced this is mine, but perhaps somebody said so way earlier. There is no single practice of dealing with dependencies. That's very important. It's not that I can offer you 1 or 2, maybe 3 very good techniques. If you use them, dependencies will disappear. There's absolutely no way in dealing with that, because the nature of dependencies is also tricky. There are a few hints I can offer, and these are the ones that I think work typically very often for me. First of all, I do verify the scope of my team. If my team, and I have it visualized, I have it mapped, if my team receives a lot of requests from different parties, I sit down with my team or my manager, or if I am a manager, I'm having this conversation, and I say, hey, do we really need to support legal department? Really? Is that our job? Maybe they should go to business. Business should deal with them, and if they really need something from our team to be done, they should do it. How about this different app team? Shouldn't they have their own competences in doing whatever we are doing, or they should come to us? So this kind of conversation, typically, especially if you look at the real case, this spaghetti that I showed you a moment ago, this conversation immediately intrigues management, and they say, no, you shouldn't do that, or you can do that, but not 50% of your capacity, maybe 5% only. That's very, very useful, and typically solves the majority of problems on the demand side of our mapping. Secondly, obviously, you need to agree with your stakeholders on prioritization, and I mean it. If you are the manager of the team, if you're a product owner, if you're using Scrum, I would discourage you to prioritize only. I will encourage you do it together with stakeholders. Guys, this is what we visualize. This is how I see the priorities. What do you think about it? If you disagree with my priorities, maybe you would like to sponsor a bit of increase of competences of my team, as simple as that. And finally, having such a map allows us to allocate capacity. If I see there's one customer or like one type of demand, for instance, defects or these change requests that needs some investment, maybe I will allocate out of my team 2 people just to do it. If you're using the Kanban method, perhaps a separate swim lane on your Kanban board to address these kinds of requests or these kinds of customers. It makes the entire flow of work smoother. And I think that's it. And I think that's it if we talk about the demand. But what about the other part? Very often what I offer to my customer depends on other teams, other parties. And as I said at the very beginning, putting any pressure over here at them perhaps doesn't make sense, right? If this is another team, different department, vendor, well, we can't do a lot. If it's a vendor, different department, maybe other team, we can have the conversation. And my approach as a consultant during digital transformations is pretty specific, because this kind of exercise with demand mapping that we have just covered, I'm repeating it with all teams. So if I care about my demand, the other team cares about their demand, including demand from my team, and everybody does it. We have a network of interconnected teams, interconnected services, each of the services looking after their own demand, it's way easier, way faster. But if we don't have such a situation, you are focusing on your team only or your organization, and you simply want to do something with the parties that you depend on, what can you do? Well, as I said, there's no single practice of dealing with dependencies. However, for dependencies that you depend on, for teams that you have to deliver something to you, there's a very big, I would say, systematic view of dependency management. This is part of Kanban maturity model and developed by Kanban University and David J. Anderson School of Management. A big poster that intentionally I'm not zooming in. There's a lot of knowledge over here. A lot of practices that you can implement, perhaps not all of them, if you want to manage dependencies. That works way better if all your services are using the Kanban method, because I think the model is optimized towards this kind of delivery. And as you can see, or not on the left-hand side, multiple different practices offered on different levels. And it's fabulous, and I love it, and I encourage you to download it from Kanban University website. However, if you ask me how often I use this in my practice with my customer, I would say not often, because it requires a lot of attention to detail. It requires bigger transformation. I mean, all teams are using Kanban; they're more or less on the same maturity level, and we can do it together. So instead of going deeper into that model, I wanted to show you a few things that worked for me in the past. A way simpler way that I would craft is a three-step way. First, what is important is to identify dependencies. You are not starting with your customers over here. You are the customer, but identifying the dependencies. I mean, when you receive a request from your customer, so the demand part, it would be great if you have a step in your process where you actually early identify dependency, external dependency. So if you are using the Scrum framework, for instance, way before your sprint starts with this particular feature, during product backlog refinement, your team should be aware of the fact that, hey, in order to do that, we will need help of a different team. So we can reach out to them way earlier, and this is the one way. If you're using the Kanban method, perhaps you would be interested in the upstream Kanban, where you decide exactly what to do when you reject all the options that you don't want to deal with, and you have a time here to identify early, to deliver this, we will need help of them. This is what I mean by identifying. In the majority of cases, it should be feasible. Then, when you already work on your feature, on your task, on your request, it would be great if you visualize the dependencies. However, visualize also their impact. In practice, it's done like that. If you have a task board, and there's a task, write down, okay, this task depends on a team. It could be a visual indicator. Both digital tools can do that. You can do it physically on a wall as well. If your item is blocked, your task is blocked because you're waiting for delivery of an external team, it's cool to write down, to visualize this is blocked, but also visualize for how long it has been blocked so far. There's a difference if my task was blocked for a day or for 20 days. If you visualize it, you can see the flow of your work on your board. It hurts when you look at the site. That gives you data. And working with data would be the third step over here. Manage the dependencies. So in other words, what does it mean to manage dependencies? Make decisions. Make decisions based on the impact. If I see, for instance, and I need to collect the data, this is the middle step, the track step over here. If I see that my tasks that are blocked because I'm waiting for somebody are typically blocked 2-3 days, except for that one team. And for that one team, I need to wait half a month, for instance. This is a very nice opportunity for a conversation. What's wrong in the process? And I can have this conversation with the manager of that team, with my manager, with sponsor, with whoever. Maybe that team needs help. Maybe my team needs help in growing capability and releasing the other team completely. Maybe we should do something about it. So this kind of decisions could be, kind of conversations could be involved. There's no one-fit-all solution over here, but I think that that if we identify dependencies early, we already mitigate a lot of risk. If we track it together with tracking their impact, the severity impact on us, we have data that we can use in any kind of conversations, and that's the final step. What else? There are 3 good practices I'd like to share with you related to what I've just mentioned. The first one, and it works pretty well every time. Focus on blockers approach. A blocker, typically, if this is not a technical issue, it's caused by dependency. I am waiting for somebody. I'm waiting for somebody outside my team or even inside my team. If we focus on blockers, not deliver, we need more and more work. We need to be busy. But if we focus on blockers, unblocking blockers, this kind of thinking, this kind of approach, after a while, makes our life way easier. Focus on blockers have 2 actually aspects. One is, well, if you're using Scrum, you have daily Scrum meeting every day. How about focusing on blockers to everyday conversation? If you're using the Kanban method as the method of choice, actually adding this point, talking about blockers to each Kanban meeting, helps team. Well, brings awareness to the blockers, first of all, but also helps teams swarm around unblocking these blockers, doing something about it. I also, and that's not either or, in my opinion, this is a parallel topic. I also encourage managers to have a regular review with key players, and these key players might be managers of other teams, and maybe my sponsor, maybe product manager, my customer, depending on your situation. But if managers see the blockers, and the managers can do something about it, can have conversation, typically there's more appetite in the organization to do something about it. Please mind that a blocker or an issue with dependencies in your team might be also a common thing, a common pattern. Other teams may have actually same troubles. So bring this kind of conversation to the level of management, middle management. Typically helps invest in it. How to do that? How to talk to managers? This is a completely different conversation, and perhaps a conversation for a different webinar. Now, I told you some time ago that we will have a special surprise for you at the end of the webinar, and here it is. Because of time of the year in November, at least here in the northern hemisphere, it's quite dark. We thought we will give a gift. We'll present a gift to all of you watching us, and the gift are 30-minute free consulting, most likely with me. There's a link, you can see it here in the on screen. If you type it, you would open a calendar. Please mind that we have limited number of free consulting opportunities, only 5 during next couple of weeks. So first in, first out. The consulting is free. We can talk about any topic related to management consulting, hopefully related to dealing with dependencies or dealing with overload in general. During such a meeting, I'll be happy to listen to what your problem is and share my point of view, or tell you what to do, what to read, which training to take, or maybe no training, that maybe you need a seed of inspiration, and that's it. And finally, Next Agile Encounter number 10, it's in December. The topic will be a Christmas gift. We are looking into our social media. I'm reading every comment that you're leaving there. I'm trying to find something that everybody will be happy to look at. So December the 7th, the same time, Agile Encounter number 10. For today, this is all. Thank you very much, and see you next time.